I really believe that? Allah promises to wash away our sins with our charity. Allah promises, as the hadith that you brought, that He will give us shade on the day of judgment. Allah promises to cure our illnesses and our diseases. The Messenger of Allah promised that our wealth would not be decreased. These are all promises from Allah and His Messenger, all linked to charity. To encourage us, to persuade us, to convince us. Don't be afraid. When you give, it will come back to you in so many ways. We've had one hand at 10,000. Do we have a second hand at 10,000? Then we'll move it down if not. Do we have a second hand, a second family, a second businessman or businesswoman, a second group of people who will take it upon themselves and say, you know what? We don't have that 10 grand. We're going to raise it. We'll raise it for this project, inshallah. And don't fear, by the way, on that subject, I was at a fundraiser recently, I may have even mentioned it when we were here last year, where a 9-year-old girl named Inaya, her name was Inaya, she raised her hand for £5,000. You should have seen the look on her mum's face. Her mum actually came up to me after and said, listen, it's not my hand, okay, I don't have 5,000. I said, look, she's made intention to raise £5,000. Whatever she can do, Bismillah. Inaya sent me the funniest video I've ever been sent since I've been a fundraiser. She was doing a rap with her colleagues. They're all little hijabi girls, and Inaya's got these big glasses, and they were doing this funky rap about the fundraising and how they're going to come together in their class to raise that money. And I was thinking to myself, you know, inshallah, they're 9 years old. They'll raise £500 or £1,000. Inshallah, it'll be amazing, whatever they raise. So I went to her school. She called her classmates, all these 9-year-olds, called the mums and dads, and we held a fundraiser to help her raise her 5,000. We raised £19,000 that day. She was 9 years old. But she made a contract with Allah. She said, Allah, help me to raise this money. And she raised 19,000 at 9 years old. So if you can't give 10,000, then make an intention today that you'll work with your group of sisters or your group of brothers or your friends. You'll raise that £10,000. What's the worst that happens? You don't raise anything. But you make that intention today, inshallah. So my last ask at 10,000. Do you have another donor or someone who will pledge to raise 10,000, inshallah? If not, we're going to move it down. Allahu Akbar. We have another hand here at £10,000. Fantastic. Allahu Akbar. Right, as promised, we're going to move it down. Imran, how are we doing on time? Carry on. The words, alhamdulillah. Okay, we're coming down to half of that again. Now half of that again, 20,000 ruled most of us out in this room. 10,000 ruled the majority of us out. 5,000, if you break it down, was that a hand straight away? 5,000, I didn't even finish my spiel, mashallah, we've got one hand there. Is that another hand? We've got a second hand at £5,000. Hold on, do you have the bill payer's permission? Does she? Okay, you have to always ask that. So the bill payer's permission here, there's another third £5,000 in the room. Excellent. Dare I ask, for maybe a fourth and a fifth? If you break it down, as I said, do that same thing. Enter that contract. £5,000 a year sounds like a massive amount of money. £100 a week now sounds a little bit more achievable for some of us. It's £400 a month over the next year. Enter the contract. Just start the contract with Allah. Ya Allah, I will give £400 a month as long as you keep replacing it. And when you stop replacing it, I will stop giving it. Test it out. See what happens. We've had 3 hands at 5,000. Do we have a fourth hand? Maybe a fifth hand, a fourth hand. We've got a fourth hand there at £5,000. Can we get that one more hand? A fifth hand? Then we're going to move it down, inshallah. I think we might get a fifth hand, inshallah. What do you think, Imran? Totally, he's more confident than I am, alhamdulillah. Do we have anybody else who will make that commitment? As I said, raise that money. Raise that money. Again, I may have mentioned this last year, forgive me. I was in Luton recently, and a woman raised her hand for £5,000. And then she came up to me afterwards, and you can tell when there's something different. And she said, please, can you pray for me and pray for my son? And I said, yes, of course. But I said, what's the situation? She said, look, that £5,000, she said, I've got it now at home. She said, on Monday morning, the builders are coming to start work because my son is disabled. and he needs a wet room. We can't lift him anymore. And they're putting a hoist into our bathroom and they're making a wet room. The work starts on Monday morning. And this was Saturday night. So she said, I felt something in my heart. I placed my trust in Allah. I'm giving the 5,000. You don't forget. I felt guilty. I felt like saying to her, no, don't give it. Keep it for your son, is what I felt like saying. She wanted to give the money. The charity phoned me on the Tuesday, 3 days later. And they said, do you remember Auntie from Luton? I said, I'll never forget Auntie from Luton. They said, listen what happened. They said, the builders came to start work on Monday morning. She said, sorry, I've given all the money away to charity. She said, I haven't got anything left. They were so upset. They've lost the whole week's work. They picked up their tools, they went away. They phoned her later that evening. She thought they were going to phone to tell her they're going to sue her or something like this. They said, listen, Auntie, we felt something. Don't worry about your bathroom. We'll build it for free. We'll build it for free. She phoned us to tell us this. Because Allah is our provider. Allah is our sustainer. And He's promised to replace our wealth. So my last ask, is there anyone else at £5,000 before we move it down? A last hand, a fifth hand, someone else who can push themselves today, inshallah. Last chance? Okay, we'll move it down. We'll move it down. We have credit card facilities as well to take your payments, inshallah. By the way, they're called PDQ machines, yeah, those machines. Anyone know what that means, PDQ? PDQ machine, what does it stand for, those initials? No one ever knows. I was at an event recently, there was a young man sitting in the front. He goes, I know, uncle. He goes, it means pay damn quick. So okay, we're going to move it down. We're going to move it down to half of that amount again. And again, hopefully now more people can get involved. We had 4 hands up at £5,000. This is now £50 a week. It's £50 a week over the next year, £200 a month. Just over the next year, as long as you can sustain it. When you can't afford it, cancel it. But make that intention for £2,500 today. We had 4 hands up at 5,000. Can we maybe get 4 hands up at 2,500 to start us off? Do we have a first hand in the room at £2,500? Do we have that first hand at 2,500? We have the first hand at £2,500. Fantastic. Do we have a second hand at 2,500? I'm hoping we can match the 5s with the 2,500s. Then we're going to come down to 1,000. But if you're someone who is maybe thinking of giving 1,000 today, push yourself. Push yourself to where it's uncomfortable. Now, I'm going to say something from my own experience, not from the Sunnah, not from the Quran, from my own experience. I believe that you get rewards even if you give £1 in charity, 10 pence in charity. Everything we give in charity, I believe Allah counts it and Allah knows it and He rewards us for it. My own personal experience is that if you want to see the miracles that are associated with charity, the miracles that we're promised with charity, then push yourself to where it's uncomfortable. I mentioned that car crash in New Zealand. A few days before that car crash, I was at a fundraiser in London, sitting in the audience. And I raised my hand for an amount that I've never given in my life before. It was the biggest donation I've ever given because I really felt the plea that the person was making on stage. And I said to my wife, I don't know if we can afford this, but we're going to try. 10 days later, I'm in New Zealand. I'm involved in this car crash. Very, very extensive head injuries. I had to be airlifted by a helicopter. I was taken. Every single doctor I met in New Zealand and subsequently on my return said the same thing to me. He said, Mr. Jung, you had a miraculous escape. Even in the ambulance, the air ambulance, they say, are you sure you're conscious? Can you grip with both hands? Do you have any visual disturbances? I don't want to be too graphic, but my entire skull was cracked open and my brains were coming out. What did I give for 10 days earlier? What did I push myself for and my family to give sadaqah, charity that I'd never given that amount before? It was 2014 and it was just after the Gaza crisis. And I gave that money for a brain pressure sensor for the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza to protect the people of Gaza from brain damage. 10 days later, my own skull was split open, my brain's coming out and I got up and I walked away. I know in my heart that Allah saved me because of what I did for those people of Gaza. So push yourself. £2,500. We've had one hand up. Do we have a second hand at £2,500? It's £200. We've got a second hand on the same table, mashallah. A second hand over there. Do we have a third and a fourth hand? Do we have a third and a fourth hand in the room? Then we're going to move it down. Do we have a third hand at least? One more hand in the room. Somebody else, inshallah. Come together. Make an intention. You'll go away and get it from your brother because he's got loads of money and he's not here today. Anybody else who's here who can do £2,500? If you break it down, it's £50 a week. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to jump down now.